He's Greg Cosell, NFL Films senior producer, and his life is to be in the vaults there at NFL Films breaking down all the footage from these kids. Now, before the draft, and Greg joins us here in the Man Cave in New York City. Before the draft, where did you have Geno Smith going?
I don't quite do it as to where I think a guy goes. I'll tell you this. I didn't think he was a first-round pick, so I wasn't the least bit surprised as to what happened with Geno Smith last night.
But what happened with leading up to the draft, Nolan Naraki's profile of him in Pro Football Weekly, and then all of a sudden
You know, that stuff to me always bothers me, Mr. Patrick, because someone told him that. He has not spent 5 seconds with Geno Smith, just like I've not spent 5 seconds with Geno Smith. When you don't spend time with people, I think you would agree with this. Isn't it awful hard to talk about their character, what kind of people they are, if you don't spend any time with them?
But who's the source? Is
it's
somebody
someone
at
in
West
the
Virginia?
league. Or it's someone at West. It's someone who he trusts told him that, and he felt comfortable because he trusts that source saying that.
But you also see where there's smear campaigns, where you have people who give information to somebody who is affiliated with them. There's agents out there.
Right.
And there's a smear campaign. I think that's what happened with Geno Smith. I don't know talent-wise, first-round pick or not. He put up good numbers, but as far as his personality, his work ethic, that's an assassination
it's all about
on his
traits.
character.
It's all about traits that are measurable, identifiable, and tangible that you can see. And by the way, work ethic is a measurable trait. So to me, that's what it's all about. All this other stuff that's, when people start talking about intangibles, that's great. Can you make throws? You got to somewhere in the NFL, it all gets manifested in how you throw it.
But I thought E.J. Manuel's personality helped him. By all accounts, great kid.
That's nice. If he wasn't 6'5", 240 with a pretty good arm. And I think here's where the Colin Kaepernick factor came into play. I think you're taking a kid who's a little raw as a passer, and it's easy now to look at Colin Kaepernick, who has a much better arm than E.J. Manuel, by the way. But it's easy now to look at Kaepernick and say, oh, everybody blew it, blah, blah, blah. But, when he came out of Nevada, there were a lot of questions about the way he threw the ball. He was a big athletic kid. By the way, he was a second-round pick, not a first-round pick. And don't let anybody fool you here, Dan. He's a first-round pick. We live in an era, the Bills can say whatever they want. E.J. Manuel's the starting quarterback. He's going to start a quarterback.
This season?
Yeah. They have Kevin Kolb. Has anything about Kevin Kolb in his career up to this point said that he'll be a consistent week-to-week player? So let's say they start Kevin Kolb, and it's week 2, and he has a bad game. You think that they're going to be able to get away with, we're going to play kind of an average, inconsistent quarterback when we just spent a first-round pick on a quarterback? That's not going to happen practically.
Manti Teo, first-round pick?
No. Do you want me to elaborate on that?
Fire away.
I think Manti Teo, and for me, Dan, it's about watching the tape. It's never personal. I don't know Manti Teo, and by all accounts, he's an unbelievable kid. But the film tells me that there's a lot of Manti Teos. I don't think he's as good a prospect as linebackers like John Beeson when he came out of Miami. James Laurinaitis, who was a second-round pick out of Ohio State. Paul Posluszny, who was a second-round pick out of Penn State. He's certainly not at the level of Luke Kuechly out of BC or Patrick Willis out of Mississippi. So to me, there's a lot of guys like Manti Teo.
Does it help not meeting these kids that you don't factor in personality? All you're doing is looking at the film.
And I know that matters to some degree, but I'm a firm believer that either you can physically play, and by the way, playing with effort is also a physical trait. When people say, oh, he's a great kid, no, he's a high motor, you can see that. That's all there in front of you on film. So, yes, it helps me because I have no agenda on this. I don't know these kids. And at the end of the day, and this might come out wrong, I don't necessarily care where guys get drafted. I don't. I'm not in the game, so to speak. So I watch film and I make my evaluations. Doesn't mean I'm right on all of them. Nobody is. But that's how I do it.
He's Greg Cosell, NFL Films, joining us here in the New York City Man Cave, Dan Patrick Show. Who did you like and who do you like today in round 2? Who did you like in round 1?
Well, I was very surprised based on my evaluations that Sharif Floyd fell. I thought Sharif Floyd was a top 5 talent in this draft. And again, it's easy to say, but Minnesota had a great draft. They got Sharif Floyd. I mean, I had him evaluated highly. Minnesota clearly, I could say with almost certainty, they did not expect him to be there at 23.
But there's a reason he dropped.
I don't know the reason.
Yes. But
I can't answer that.
Yes. But there has to be a reason, and I would imagine off the field, there's a reason why he dropped.
I've been told by a lot of people he's a Hall of Fame kid. I don't know the kid. That's what I've been told.
Who else did you really like last night?
That went last night? Who did I? Well, I loved Jonathan Cooper. Now, this How about this? Doesn't this tell you about the quarterbacks? 9 offensive linemen in the first round last night.
Yeah.
I think that tells you all you need to know about how people really feel about the quarterbacks. And by the way, have you looked over the years at the history of second-round quarterbacks in the NFL? It's bad. It's bad. So the guys being taken today, and everybody will say there's going to be a run on quarterbacks. I'm sure we're all saying that, right? Well, now you're in the run on quarterbacks with, gee, I hope maybe. Let's see if this guy can play. Anybody you draft as a quarterback now, you're not saying he's my guy. You're saying, I hope he can play a little bit.
Well, but let's say Barkley or Nassib are drafted by Jacksonville. They're going to push Blaine Gabbert.
Without question.
Yes.
But if you
or
didn't
Geno Smith, too.
If you didn't draft that guy in the first round, you're basically saying we don't think he's a franchise quarterback. We think he's a maybe.
I love Tavon Austin.
Oh, me too.
And I think on the carpet with the Rams as your I mean, he's their weapon.
Right.
Now, how much can they use him as their weapon?
You got to expand your mind, Mr. Patrick. You got to go back to the 60s here. Think a little Jefferson Airplane. You got to let your mind
a little White Rabbit?
There you go. There you go.
Okay.
That's the song
a little
we have
Gray
in mind.
Slick. Okay.
There you go.
All right, there you go.
Don't think conventionally. The game's changing. It's all about players.
But they were taking pills back then, I think. One pill is for something and then one pill is for...
And you don't think anybody is today?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a moment.
Right. So think of how players are used now. Think about Randall Cobb being used by Mike McCarthy in Green Bay. You line up anywhere. Basically, what teams would love to have now is 5 receivers who can line up anywhere, not confined to the usual standards of, he's a wideout, he only lines up here. He's a slot guy, he only lines up here. To me, Tavon Austin is sort of the devastating new multidimensional weapon in the evolution of this game.
Well, the running back has been diminished. I mean, now, granted, not a great year for running backs, but I don't think we put an emphasis on running backs.
I got a theory on that, too.
Okay, fire away.
Okay? I think that's a scout thing, okay, and a GM thing. I've talked to a lot of coaches. They don't see it the same way because you know what happens? It's week 6. You're up by 2 with 6 minutes to go. What do you have to do then?
Run.
You got to run the ball.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for coaches then to say, well, gee, we passed on a really good running back and we thought we could get one in round 5. It doesn't work that way because you know what? Those guys do help you win games. So value is one of those great philosophical classroom discussions. You know, it's like taking existential philosophy in college. You know, how do you use that? It's a lot of fun. It's great conversation, you know, when you're having a beer late at night. But, you know, let's win a football game. You know, I was very surprised Eddie Lacy, who I think is the best running back in this draft, he's still on the board.
Okay, if you looking at the second round, best player available second round is?
I love Justin Hunter, the wideout from Tennessee.
I liked him better than
Cordarrelle Patterson, as did I. I made a point last night that, I thought the other receiver was Cordarrelle Patterson. I thought Justin Hunter, who, by the way, is built exactly like A.J. Green. He's not A.J. Green in the way he plays exactly, but he's built exactly like A.J. Green. And I'm going to throw out another name, and, of course, people fall off their chairs. When he has free access, which means he's not pressed and he can fly off the line of scrimmage, his stride length is like Randy Moss.
That's high praise. I like the Hopkins kid out of Clemson.
Yeah, a lot of people see him, and I sort of wavered watching him, and I kind of liked him more and more as I saw him.
I watched the LSU game.
That was the bowl game. He had a huge game, 13 for 190.
Yeah. And there was an Andre Johnson feel about him. I
think there's a Roddy White feel about him.
Okay. There's a feel. I mean, I
don't think he's Andre. Andre Johnson's bigger and far more explosive. I think there's a Roddy White feel about that.
That's
kid.
not a bad. If you're
him. Every once in a while I come up with one.
All right, so rank the quarterback second round. Where they should go.
Quarterbacks are. It comes down to traits. Okay, I'll just say this. Ultimately, you have to decide which traits you value over others. If you're not bothered by average arm strength, then Matt Barkley's okay for you. If average arm strength is a big concern for you, as it is for me, then Matt Barkley's not your guy. Geno Smith has concerns as well. He's not consistently accurate. He doesn't throw the ball with anticipation. That's why these guys drop, because there's something about their game that people are concerned doesn't translate. Now, I like Ryan Nassib. I don't understand why Mike Glennon is not thought of more highly. You talk to that coaching staff, which was the same coaching staff in college that had Matt Ryan at BC, they'll tell you Mike Glennon's Matt Ryan.
Okay, so rank the quarterbacks here.
I'll go Nassib, Glennon, Smith,
Barkley?
Landry Jones, Matt Barkley.
Landry Jones. Man, you don't like Barkley.
I'm an arm strength guy. Maybe I hang around with people over the years who can throw, but I like my quarterbacks that can drive the ball into tight windows, okay? Somewhere in this league, it's 3rd and 9, and you got to sit on your back foot and drive the ball. You can't always manage and manipulate your. I love when people say, well, he's a West Coast guy, give him 3-step drop, 5-step drop. That's great. What happens when it's 3rd and 9? You can't do that. Then you got to make throws. I think Barkley will struggle to make those throws.
I'm glad you stopped in. Good to visit with you, Greg.
Oh, this was awesome.
Thank you. Down in the vault, how many hours do you spend watching game film?
Well, during the NFL season, probably 30, 35 hours a week.
Have you watched Johnny Manziel on tape?
Yes, because I watched Luke Jokel, but I didn't study him to the point where I was, taking my copious notes on Manziel.
But is he a second-round quarterback going into his final year in college?
I have to look more at the way he throws the ball. We know he can run around and all that. And I think people now have a sense, Dan, that that's what it takes to play quarterback, just run around and make plays. I don't buy that for half a second.
Yeah.
So I've got to really study how he throws it, and I haven't done that.
Because I think this will be his last year at Texas
So do
A&M.
I.
Well, these kids can't. Barkley stays a year longer.
Right.
If he comes out,
We don't know that. He said he was going back to USC in December. He didn't even make it through the draft process. So no offense, sir.
Okay.
But it was the media that said he'd be a top 5 or a top 10 pick. He never even got to the evaluation process. And I think everybody ends up where they belong once the process happens. I don't believe he would have been a top 5 or a top 10 pick because they would have looked at the player. He doesn't have those traits.
He said Minnesota and Washington, with the interest he was getting.
Barkley?
Yeah.
Last year?
Last year.
Right.
Minnesota and Washington. Now, he didn't say what round.
Right.
But the feeling I got, he was talking about first round with Minnesota.
Well, they had just drafted Christian Ponder
Exactly.
the year before with the 12th pick in the draft.
I don't yell at me, Greg. I'm just, I'm just giving you information back. What if Jadeveon Clowney was in this year's draft?
Oh, now that guy, because I watched South Carolina's defense, and I wasn't studying him, but that guy jumps off the screen. That guy's a freak.
Is he a Javon Curse-like?
I think he's better.
Wow.
He's bigger. He's 270, 275 pounds.
The knock I heard, and he's going to get scrutinized, is that he doesn't show up for all the plays. Because that great bull hit he had on Michigan, I think he only had 3 tackles in the game.
Right. Well, I didn't study him like that. I'm talking about athleticism, explosion, and movement, and he's off the charts.
What about Marcus Lattimore?
I thought, it's funny, I saw him on TV an awful lot as a freshman, and my first thought was this guy is a true foundation back in the NFL. This guy is special. I think a healthy Marcus Lattimore would have been the number 1 pick in this draft. Number 1 back in this draft, not number 1 pick.
Top 10 pick, though?
No, because, again, it's not how I feel. I feel the devaluation of backs is a little extreme, but that's the reality of the world in which we live. So I don't think he would have been a top 10 pick.
All right, go back to your film room. Go back to your cave there, Greg.
All right, Dan. Thanks.
Thank you for stopping by. Greg Cosell of NFL Films. Always love hearing his analysis on these guys.